What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the night that we have all have been waiting for. I know I've certainly been waiting for it for quite a while, and judging by the excitement that has been going around lately, it looks like the show really impresses in this first episode. I've been hearing really good reviews for episode one. And tonight we are going to hang out and kill some time while we wait for episode one to load up at 9 p.m. Eastern. Just over 1 hour from now, the episode will be officially available. And then, of course, we will all go and watch it. And then we will reconvene here for a live after show discussion right here on the channel after episode one. I'm excited. I am very excited. I've been looking forward to the show for a while. We haven't really had a whole lot of shows, like really, really good shows that we've been super into ever since Foundation ended, really. Alien Earth was kind of a bust for me personally. I had a lot of high hopes for Alien Earth, and it turned out to be kind of disappointing, in my opinion. But I have high hopes for it. Welcome to Derry, and everything that we're seeing from behind the scenes, from the returning creators to Bill Skarsgård returning, and the interesting interludes that they're pulling from the source material that they're adapting the show from. It's looking like Welcome to Derry is going to be very interesting, and I'm hearing it's much more brutal than the two films. We're going to see a darker side of Pennywise. We're going to see a lot more of Pennywise. Maybe not so much him in his clown form, but we're going to see a lot of his other forms in this show, from what I'm told. And we're going to be exploring his past, and that's probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most. He's got such an interesting and intriguing past, Pennywise does, from how he first landed on Earth to him slumbering under Derry for millions of years until humanity started populating the planet, to him first emerging in the 1700s, and so on and so forth. He's got a very interesting past and a rich history for them to draw on here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Pennywise's past and some of his other identities, some of his other forms, like, of course, this human form, Bob Gray, that we're going to be learning a lot about in this series as well. So I'm ready. I am ready. Just about 1 hour to go, and it is here. PM, you ready for this? It's here. We've been waiting.
I know, right? I feel like we have been anticipating the show, the premiere of the show, that I can't believe that it's already here. I do like that we are going to be looking at the origin. It looks like in the trailer, we're going to look at some
Yep.
other groups of people dealing with Pennywise, which to me is really interesting, how
Yeah.
different cultures would deal with somebody like Pennywise, especially
Mm,
with the folklore in different cultures. Are they going to look at him as a deity, a god of some sorts, or
mhm.
are they immediately going to know he's like demonic, basically?
Yeah, and with his shape shifting ability, I think it's going to be the most interesting to see how he reacted with the Native American tribes that he first started feeding on when he first became active in the 1700s. Because Native Americans have so many different stories and lores and mythologies about shape shifting creatures and shape shifting demons that someone like Pennywise with his abilities would fit right into kind of all of their worst fears, you would think. So I think that's going to be very interesting. But yeah, I mean, I love that they're exploring his past. What was fun about the It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 was it was a pretty decent adaptation of the book for the most part. Yes, some things were changed. But here, instead of going forward, we're starting in 1962 and going backwards. We got 3 seasons of Welcome to Derry to look forward to, and each season is going to be set further and further in the past. So we're starting in 1962 for season one. Season two will be set in the 30s, and season three, so on and so forth. We're going to continue to go further and further into the past instead of going forward. And I thought that was a very brilliant idea on Andy Muschietti's part. And I'm super glad that he's back to helm this whole thing. He's not only creating the show, but he also directed the first 4 or 5 episodes himself, too. So you're going to get that same it quality that we got in the films here on the show. And based on everything we've seen from the trailers and the behind the scenes, it looks like we're getting exactly that. It looks like they threw a ton of money at this, very high production quality, and I think they're going to get their money's worth on the return.
Oh yeah, I was seeing the comments in some of the trailers, and somebody commented, "This looks expensive," and it
Oh yeah.
does. Indeed, it looks so expensive. But you wouldn't expect anything less from HBO, right? I'm excited to see some of the special effects because they
Yeah.
look so good. You know,
They,
it's a hit and a miss when they're doing special effects like levitation, some of what
yeah.
we saw in the trailer, but it's looking really good.
It does. It looks great. It does look great. The trailers have all looked great. It's been fun diving into them. Um, and yeah, I think they got a very interesting cast. And for me, one of the most interesting parts of this, and I'm so glad that they threw this in to the show because it does line up with the books. Them putting none other than Dick Halloran on the show. When I saw that, I got super excited. Dick Halloran, of course, is a very famous character from The Shining. I'm sure most people will remember this version here of Dick Halloran from The Shining, the famous Shining film, which is also set in the Stephen King universe. And I love that they're throwing Dick Halloran in Welcome to Derry to firmly establish the connection between Welcome to Derry, and The Shining. But not only that, we also saw some Easter eggs for the Shawshank Redemption bus as well. So they're tying that in as well. Right around now in 1962, where season one is taking place, would have been right around the time where Andy was locked up in Shawshank Redemption. So everything that we saw in Shawshank is happening at the same time as Welcome to Derry. He escapes around 4 years after the beginning of the show here, timeline wise. So I love how they're tying in all of these other Stephen King worlds. And that's kind of how his universe is in the books. He always throws these little subtle clues that kind of connect all of his stories in some subtle way. So I'm glad that they're doing that here on the show. But this was my most exciting part, learning that Dick Halloran is going to be on It Welcome to Derry, because he does have a very interesting past in the town of Derry, Maine. And season one is going to be centered around one of these. Season one is going to be centered around one of these big incidents that Dick Halloran has a part in, which is the incident at the Black Spot Club. And I won't spoil it here for anyone who hasn't read the books or doesn't know what's coming, but it looks like that's going to be a big part of season one. And Dick Halloran is going to be right in the middle of that. And that's going to be interesting seeing a younger version of Dick Halloran and see how he uses his abilities to uh, help what happens at the Black Spot. But not only that, I heard the creators saying something very interesting in some of the interviews, in terms of having Dick Halloran interact with Pennywise, and how Dick Halloran may very well be the first person Pennywise has come across that has supernatural abilities other than himself. Pennywise is so used to just snacking on regular humans. We're not sure if he ever has come across somebody with supernatural abilities like himself. So I think that's going to make for a very interesting dynamic, seeing some of the scenes between Dick Halloran and Pennywise, considering they both have supernatural abilities.
Yeah, I think he's used to picking on people who are so vulnerable. I
Yeah,
mean, we all know that Pennywise
children.
loves to go after children
Yeah,
who are terrified and they're easy to scare.
yeah.
Um, you rarely see him going after adults. We're going to see a little bit of that here, which is something that I also wanted to see. I
Yeah.
think in the movies, we don't really see him interacting with adults in that manner where he is going after them too much. It's always
Mhm.
the children or the children that grew up
That
and
grow
they're
up now.
always afraid
Mhm.
of him.
Yeah.
But my question, and I think a lot of people's questions when we're watching this interaction and how
Mhm.
Pennywise targets the children, a lot of us are wondering what's going on with the adults. There's
Yeah.
like 500 missing children. What are you doing? Why are you not noticing this? And so we're going to get the answer as to what is going on with the adults, how
Yes.
they interact with Pennywise, why
Mhm.
they're allowing this, right?
Yeah.
Which is something that I always kind of wanted to know. The children are running around, but their parents are saying nothing, even
Mhm.
though there's always missing children. And um, so that's going to be really interesting. But let alone an adult, somebody that can take them, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you pick on somebody that's,
Mhm.
potentially as powerful as you?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so I want to see how he reacts to his power, if
Mhm.
it surprises him at all.
Yeah. That's what I want to see. I want to see the look on Pennywise's face when he comes across somebody that also has supernatural abilities, something that as far as we know, he's never come across before. Pennywise, like you said, he's always used to snacking on the most vulnerable of humanity, whether that's children or vulnerable adults. So yeah, I can't wait to see the whole Dick Halloran storyline. Judging from the behind the scenes and some of the things I've heard personally from the show, from people who are close to the production, Dick Halloran has a massive part to play on the show. They've really expanded his character in a very unique way to make him one of the main characters on the show. Yes, the show is going to be centered around this, earlier version of the quote unquote Losers Club with all of these children. But Dick Halloran and Leroy Halloran are going to be a very strong presence on the show as well. And you hear Andy Muschietti talking about the kind of team that they're going to make, where you have Leroy Hanlon, who isn't afraid of anything. He really, there's really nothing he's afraid of. He's kind of conquered his fear. When you take that and you mix it with Dick Halloran's supernatural abilities, they become a pretty formidable force, is how the creators were describing it. So I'm looking forward to seeing Leroy and Dick Halloran teaming up and investigating some of the goings on that's going to be happening in Derry once things start to kind of go haywire. But yeah, Pennywise going up against somebody with powers is something we have never seen before. That in and of itself is going to be pretty fun. But let us know what you guys think in the chat as well. Are you guys looking forward to it? Welcome to Derry. What are some of your thoughts and theories for this first episode? What do you think is going to happen? Let us know in the chat. We got Drip King in the house. What is up, Drip King? Are we watching episode 1? I wish we could. If it was legal for me to watch episode 1, I would throw it right on here and we would all watch it together. But unfortunately, my channel would get struck down by HBO faster than I can spit. They're very closely guarded with their copyright. So unfortunately, I can't show the episode even if I wanted to, but I would if I could. But instead of showing the episode, we will be doing pregame shows and after show discussions here on the channel every single week. As soon as the episode is over, we're going to fire up another live stream tonight and talk all about episode 1 with anyone who wants to join us. But unfortunately, I can't show the episode. Wish I could. And thank you for subbing. Very much appreciate that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have to wait till one of those websites uploads it. I feel you. I mean, not everybody has HBO. It's understandable. HBO is one of the streaming services I kind of always hold on to because they're always coming out with something that I like in one way or another. So HBO is always one that I can tend to have, but not everybody does. But welcome, Flying Kitten. Good to see you. We got the Rogue Prince in the house. What is up, Rogue Prince? Good to see you. I got Big Dago in the building. What is up, Big Dago? Golden Child Production says, I hope this doesn't disappoint. Me too. I do. Again, I had really high hopes for Alien Earth, and Alien Earth really disappointed me. It started off okay, and then it really took a giant nosedive by the time you got to the finale. For me personally, I know a lot of people liked Alien Earth, so I can only speak for myself. But I had high hopes for that show, and it shot me in the gut. I have high hopes for this show, and I hope I don't get gut shot again. I mean, everything I'm seeing from the show and everything that I've heard about the show points to it being a very good production and a good story. But you never know. You never know. So just because trailers look phenomenal doesn't always mean the show is going to be great, as we know very well. So yeah, hopefully it doesn't disappoint. Hopefully it does not disappoint. I'm excited. Yes, as insane. I'm very excited for the show. I am. I'm super excited. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be pretty good. I think Pennywise shapeshifts into a zombie Uncle Sam. Yes, that looked so cool, didn't it, Drew? Hell yeah. I think I have that shot here. I made sure that was one of the shots I saved. Because I love that shot. That was one of the best shots from the trailer. And, all of the trailers have had incredibly good looking shots. Here we have the zombified monster version of Uncle Sam, popping out in front of the soldiers. I heard a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people kind of, complaining before the show even started that we're not going to see a lot of Pennywise until like halfway through the season and towards the end. And I think that's a good thing. Pennywise is one of those characters that you don't want to show the clown on screen too often because then audiences will become desensitized to it. I love how Andy Muschietti kind of compares the Pennywise clown form to Jaws, the shark on Jaws. And it's kind of these two characters are used in very similar functions where you only want to bring them out in crucial, critical moments. Pennywise, what's great about him is he's a shapeshifter. He can turn into all manner of incredibly terrifying creatures. So just because we're not going to see him in his clown form every single episode doesn't mean we're not going to get a ton of Pennywise in all of his other various forms, like this one here. And again, I love that. I think Andy's making a very good decision there because, again, you show the clown too much, you show Bill in that makeup too much, audiences will get used to it and they will become desensitized to it. And then when you see him on screen, it's not really going to be a big deal. Using him sparingly, the way they did in the films and the way they're doing here, I think is 100% the right call. And again, it opens up the creativity box for you to dive into all of these other creatures that you can portray him as. Again, he's not only a shapeshifter, but he's an illusionist. He can create illusions in front of people, make people see just about whatever they want. So that really kicks open the door creatively in terms of all of the different forms that you can portray Pennywise in, instead of only showing the clown form too much and having people get too used to it. You don't want people to get too used to that clown form. So I love that we're seeing other forms of Pennywise, like this Uncle Sam version, like some of the other things that we've seen in the trailers. Absolutely love that. I'm so glad that we're not going to get too much of the clown, because I want the clown shots to, have meaning. And they're not going to have meaning if we see him on screen every single episode. But I will say this, the shots that we do see him on screen look phenomenal. I mean, just look at this shot right here. This is one of my favorite shots from the entire trailers. You see Pennywise just standing there in the fire. This is probably most likely right around the black spot incident, judging by the fire. But just incredibly good looking shot. Nothing more than just a single silhouette of Pennywise is all you really need to invoke that feeling. And using him sparingly like this, I think, is such a good idea. Very similar to this shot, another one of my favorite ones in all of the trailer, where you just kind of see that silhouette of Pennywise invoking that same feeling, but not showing the clown full on. And I think that's a brilliant technique that they're using, where we can see Pennywise once in a while, but it's not shoved in our faces too much to the point where we get used to it. Loving the cinematography on this show. It has had some of the most beautiful shots that I've seen. Like, there are some incredibly beautiful shots in these trailers. I cannot wait to see them on screen.
Yeah, and I think it highlights what the show's supposed to be. I believe it's Cherry Ann 6461 was saying the interest in the show is the lore. And along
Yes.
with the lore, I
Yes.
think that sometimes we forget the magnitude of what Pennywise is, because we see him as the dancing clown. We kind of just associate him with being the clown, but he's a demonic cosmic entity that is like billions of years old and has many forms. So while this is his preferred form, we haven't really seen him using any of the other shape shifting, figures that he might like, which I
Mhm.
think is what's interesting. I want to know more about him. When exactly did he pick up the clown form? Because if he has been on Earth for billions of years, then at some point he was something else. He was feeding and he wasn't necessarily in clown form. So I want to see some of the other variations that he takes on. And like Cherry Ann says, that's what's going to be the appeal of the show. We know about the dancing clown, but now we need to figure out, what was he before he was the
Yeah.
dancing clown.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that they're going to be shining a light and highlighting some of his earlier forms before he found the clown persona. And it looks like we are going to see some of those. Pennywise has been portrayed in some very interesting forms in his day. Most notably, most notably this giant hawk-like creature covered in balloons. He's notably spotted in, and how it's described in the book. And we saw a little glimpse of this in It Chapter 2, when Mike Hanlon was going to the Shaco tribe and learning about the ritual of Chud. We see that little flashback that they kind of showed him after he had that drink, that showed some of his earlier kind of bird-like forms that Pennywise would use to scare the Native American tribes. And then there's also, reports of him using some sort of Wendigo shape, like a Native American Wendigo. And that's another thing that we see right in it, chapter 2. We see his kind of crazy Wendigo form right here. This is stuff that he would prey on, that he would use long before he found the clown. Because the thing about Pennywise is he can turn into anything, but what he usually turns into is your worst fear. He's capable of telepathy. He's capable of knowing what you're afraid of most and then turning into exactly that. Yes, he can change into anything, but usually he is changing into something that most accurately reflects your worst fears. Hence why we see him as a Wendigo in front of the Native Americans. Native Americans have tons of mythologies and lores about Wendigos. And now we're seeing that form.
Yeah, which makes you think what came first? Did the Wendigo come first and then Pennywise took on the form? Or have these cultures sort of seen a version of Pennywise and then incorporated the Wendigo into their culture and their folklore because they saw Pennywise? So that
Mm.
it's going to be interesting to see how they write that. We do have a question from Killer Queen 303, and they want to know what happens if it, meaning Pennywise, gets out of or escapes Derry.
Mm. Well, fortunately for the rest of the globe and the rest of humanity, he can't. He is landlocked within the area of Derry. Part of the lore of Pennywise, we're not 100% sure why, but you definitely get the feeling that this was some kind of restriction that was maybe put on him by Maturin the Turtle, or maybe even the Crimson King or some of the other deities that are in the Stephen King universe. But as far as the lore goes, the entity known as Pennywise is only capable of residing in the area where he landed on Earth. So since he landed on Earth in the area that became known as Derry, Maine, he's bound to that area forever. As long as he's in this plane of existence, he can't escape Derry, Maine. He can't go beyond a certain border. So that's why we don't see him kind of popping up in all of these other towns and all of these other places in some of these other Stephen King novels, because as powerful as he is, that is one of his limitations. He can't leave Derry, Maine. He is stuck within the area which he landed in, pretty much.
Which was one of the questions that a lot of us had, right? We see him kind of wreak havoc on this town, and you always immediately want to know, why isn't he kind of doing that to the rest of the world?
Yeah.
Um, so there you go, Killer Queen. That's the answer. He can't actually do that. Now,
Yeah.
I do have a follow-up question to that. We see
Please.
him kind of prey on children, right?
Hmm.
That's his preferred human to eat or consume.
Yeah.
Does he ever eat, or do we ever see him consuming adults?
Yes, I mean he Pennywise prefers children because the fear of children is quote unquote the sweetest to him, but he's not above snacking on anything he has to at any given time. Most notably in It Chapter 2, when the Losers Club are older and they're adults, and he's going after them just as he would children. So while he prefers children because their fear is the sweetest, he'll snack on anyone if he has to.
Mm. And that's what I was saying. We were talking about this earlier, just between us, but it's just such an emphasis of how pure evil Pennywise is,
Yeah.
that he can technically eat adults too, but he prefers to eat the children because they taste better when they're afraid. I mean, that is an entity of just pure evil. He consumes them and has to make them afraid before he does so, which kind of ups the ante as to how evil of a cosmic entity he really is.
Mm. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, him going around snacking on children would be bad enough, but that's not good enough. He has to make sure he scares the shit out of these children before he snacks on them to salt in the meat, as he calls it. But yeah, I mean, that's why he predominantly targets children. And that's why the clown persona, once he found it, Pennywise the Dancing Clown, that form became his favorite because it was the most effective at luring children in and then being able to scare them. So that's why we always see him in the clown persona. It's his favorite persona for luring children in. But as Drew brings up, which is something I'm very much looking forward to seeing in the show, and it looks like we're going to get a good glimpse of Bob Gray as well. I'm interested in Bob Gray's story. Yes, Bob Gray is the human-like identity of of Pennywise and the dancing clown, and it looks like we're going to see a good glimpse of him. This right here is Bob Gray. We see glimpses of him in the It films. Beverly, most famously, has an interesting kind of vision where she's seeing Bob Gray, putting on makeup inside of his circus tent. But Bob Gray was the human persona that Pennywise took on so he could kind of more easily blend in amongst humanity. Now, there in the book, there is discrepancy as to whether or not Pennywise made this alias up for himself or whether he saw this alias in a traveling circus and stole it from someone. But the way the films have laid it down is he very much found Pennywise the dancing clown in a traveling circus, consumed the real Bob Gray, and took on his identity. So we're going to see a little bit of him. The behind the scenes trailer that just came out a few days ago showed that they built an entire set of this traveling circus. We're going to see all of it. We're going to see tons of stuff from that time period in the mid 1700s, right about. And we're going to see tons of Bob Gray. It looks like they are very much going to develop the Bob Gray storyline a little bit deeper. I saw the set that they built. Anyone who saw the behind the scenes feature that they just released a few days ago, I'm sure you guys saw it too. But they have Pennywise's little circus tent built. They have the entire circus built up, a whole set dedicated to the traveling circus. So we're definitely going to see a good amount of Bob Gray, and that's probably one of the aspects I'm looking forward to seeing the most. Really, the Bob Gray persona has always been, super mysterious, super creepy, very ambiguous in terms of the origins of it, at least in the books, even though, the film has clarified it a little bit more for the film version, but the book version has always been a little bit more ambiguous. But yeah, we are definitely going to get a decent amount of Bob Gray, it looks. They built the entire circus set, and I cannot wait to see how they utilize it. And again, this is the fun of Pennywise, as Sherry Ann said in the chat earlier. Yes, the current storyline that's going to be taking place in 1962 with this kind of earlier version of the Losers Club, I'm sure that's going to be interesting as well. But I think the most interesting part of this show is going to be the lore, is going to be the history of Pennywise, discovering his past, showing some of these flashbacks, showing who he was when he first landed, showing how he came across the Pennywise persona, how he adopted it for himself, what did he do to the original Bob Gray. This is some of the stuff I'm looking forward to seeing the most. I'm definitely looking forward to the current storyline in 62 because I do really want to see how Pennywise and Dick Halloran are going to interact with each other. Again, with Dick Halloran being the only person Pennywise has ever come across that has supernatural abilities. How is Pennywise going to react to seeing a human with supernatural abilities? Is that going to scare him? Is that going to throw him off his game a little bit? Or is that going to make Pennywise double down and consider him twice as much of a threat? So I think the Bob Halloran aspect of the show is going to be phenomenal, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the history the most. I want to see some of this lore developed a little bit more. I want to see the history of Pennywise, the origins of Bob Gray and Pennywise the Dancing Clown, and it looks like we're going to get a pretty heavy dose of all of that over the next 3 seasons.
Yeah, and also, what does it take for Pennywise to target you? So I want more answers because, of course, there's multiple clowns. It's not just one clown that existed at the time, or in multiple professions. Even in the circus, he could have been anything in the circus. But why did he choose Bob Gray specifically?
Mm,
Was there something in his life that made him the perfect choice
mm,
for Pennywise? Was he maybe
yeah.
already corrupted and evil, as it were, and that
Hmm.
made it easier for Pennywise to choose him?
Yeah.
The idea that he chose the clown because at the time it allowed him to be in close proximity to children
Yeah.
so that he can eat them, right, and terrify
Yeah.
them. at the time it made sense, right? But going forward, knowing that there's going to be 3 seasons of the show, I'm interested in knowing about his other forms, because now we don't really have, traveling circus like we used to. It's
Yeah,
not, as big of a deal as it used to be.
yeah.
So does that mean that potentially in the future he transforms into something more high tech, something that could connect with the children of the era? Um, and what would that be, right?
Yeah, that will be interesting. I mean, I always thought it would be interesting to see, like the forms that Pennywise takes on from his earliest days compared to the forms that he takes on in like modern day, Derry, like in the 2020s. And we get a small glimpse of not the 20, a little bit of that in It Chapter 2, where he kind of takes on, some very interesting and scary forms, like the giant statue of Paul Bunyan he kind of inhabits and takes over, which is one of my favorite ones. But yeah, I mean, this is what's so fun about an It Welcome to Derry TV series that's centered around Pennywise and some of the earlier years of Derry. The creativity door has literally just been kicked open for you to show him in any kind of form you want. You can really come up with it. This really is a blank canvas. The It book is based on the Losers Club, which takes place, long after this. We've already seen those two movies adapted in It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. This right here is only based on the interludes, which are very, very sparingly in terms of like factual information. There's a lot there for them to kind of fill in. So they do have, in some instance, a little bit of a blank canvas to show Pennywise in some really incredible forms. And I think we're going to get that. I do. I think we're going to get a lot of interesting forms of Pennywise in the show throughout the course of these 3 seasons, and I can't wait. On another note, we have a question for From. When is the next season of From premiering? Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to get From season 4 as soon as I originally thought. Originally, I was really hoping for like a January or February release date. But I recently did a video on the latest information coming out from season 4. And someone in our Discord, Taryn, actually, big shout out to Taryn, dropped into our Discord a casting call where the From set was looking for an actress to play in a whole new monster, a brand new monster that we're going to be getting in season 4. But the filming date for this new actress is set right around the week of November 10th. So if they're still filming into November and into the end of November, then unfortunately that means we're probably not going to get season 4 on our screens until March or April, or maybe even longer, unfortunately. Because of course they still have post-production and whatever reshoots that they need to do. And if they're only finishing main filming at the end of November, then it's going to be a little bit longer. We'll probably still get it early 2026 like they're aiming for, but it's not going to be super early 2026. It's going to be closer to March or April, most likely. And yeah, it feels like it's been a while, right? It does. It feels like it's been quite a while. But of course, if you want to learn a little bit more about all of the newest information coming out for From season 4, check out my latest From video that's on the channel, and that will give you all of the information that is up to date right now concerning season 4. Yeah, definitely interested in Bob Gray's story. Hell yes. Unfortunately, I can't broadcast the episode here. I would if I could, but it's illegal. I would get hit with a copyright claim super fast if I tried to play it here. But we will be doing a live after show right after it ends. As soon as it ends, right after 10 o'clock, we're going to be coming right back here and firing up another live stream, and we're going to do a live after show discussion. And hopefully you guys come and join us, because I would love to hear everybody's thoughts and opinions after we're all done watching season 1. Cannot wait to hear what you guys think. Yeah, it seems to me that the lore, more so than the character, is the main appeal. Yeah, the lore is a huge appeal to the character. I mean, the lore really is one of the biggest draws of the character, 100%. Yeah, I mean, hey, at this point, I would not mind seeing Pennywise kind of turning into this hulking behemoth and just kind of tearing up Derry. That wouldn't be too bad to see, for sure. I certainly would not mind that. Um, what caused him to pop? What's the cause of him popping up in certain eras? Well, the thing about Pennywise is and this is another restriction that has been put on him. He's only allowed to rise up once around every 27 years. It's not every 27 years to the date. It's kind of roughly every 27 years. He first emerges, and anyone who wants to learn about the earlier history of Pennywise and his kind of timeline from when he landed on Earth to the events of the show, definitely check out my latest It Welcome to Derry video. It shows the complete history of Pennywise. But just for the cliff notes, he first lands on Earth millions of years ago, before humanity has even evolved on Earth. And since humanity isn't around and there's nothing for him to feed on, he hibernates. For millions of years, he hibernates underground in the area in North America that would later become Derry, Maine. Then, all these years later, when Derry starts getting settled by Native Americans and some of the first settlers that came over here, that's when Pennywise first emerges for the first time in the year 1715. That is his first feeding cycle. And he stays active for around 1 year. And during that 1 year, he consumes around 300 souls out of the settlement of Derry, Maine. He, after being slumbering for millions of years, it seemed like he was really hungry. So then he goes back to sleep, and then he wakes up again years later in 1740. And this is probably one of his most notable cycles, his second feeding cycle, the second time he had ever woken up, right from 1740 to 1743. Because in this time period, in that second cycle, is when he discovers Pennywise the Dancing Clown. I believe he discovers Pennywise in 1741, 1 year after he wakes up during his second cycle. And that's the most interesting cycle for the character, in terms of lore. And it looks like we're going to see that on the show. It looks like they're probably going to be focusing on that mid 1700s cycle when he woke up, when he found Pennywise, and when the Native Americans first tried trapping him and all of that, everything that we saw in the movies. But if you want to learn a little bit, more about all of his, his history and why he pops up in certain eras, that's really why. It's just one of the restrictions that's on him. Not only is he only allowed to remain within the confines of Derry, Maine, he's bound to the area in which he entered our Earth on. And since the comet landed here, he's kind of stuck here. That's why we don't see him spreading out. And of course, that's why we don't see him active 24/7. It's another restriction that is put on him, where he has to go back into hibernation for 27 years. He can only emerge every 27 years for a short amount of time before he has to go back into hibernation. And these are just small little restrictions that are put on him to probably contain his power. Otherwise, he would consume the entire planet in the manner of weeks. If he didn't have these restrictions, if he could go wherever he wanted and feed on whoever he wanted for as long as he wanted, one of his nicknames is literally the Eater of Worlds. He would have consumed this entire planet if that was the case. So it's just little restrictions that were put on him, in my opinion, most likely from the deity that is known as Maturin the Turtle, the cosmic turtle that created our universe, and is kind of the direct opposite to it. It himself is a trans-dimensional entity of just pure energy. And we see his original form every once in a while in the books, called the Deadlights, those weird kind of yellowish orange swirling lights. That's his real form. That is his true presence. But any human that sees that will usually instantly die or instantly go incredibly mad. So he doesn't just walk around as the Deadlights. He has all of these other forms that he can take on. And we're going to see all of those other forms, a lot of those other forms. But that's basically why, he's kind of limited in his power. He can't just do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. He has these rules that he has to follow, basically.
Yeah, I really like the question you guys in the chat. Those are great questions because it makes me wonder, how did he figure out the rules? I mean, it would seem that he arrived on the planet and he's arriving for the first time. So he's not going to know all of these things. How is it that he finds out that he can escape Derry? Does he attempt to escape at a certain time? How
Yeah.
does he find out that he has to go into hibernation for that amount of time? There had
Mhm.
to be a point in time where he arrived and he tried all of these things in order to see the limits of what he could do, right?
Mhm.
If there is not a lot of communication between the turtle and Pennywise. I also am hopeful, who knows? I didn't really, we didn't see it in the trailers, but I want to know more about the turtle. I have so many questions for the
Mm.
turtle. It's like, are you helping? I know that at points the turtle does kind of guide them spiritually
Mhm.
to find the power within, right? And
Yeah.
defeat Pennywise. But can you do more? Are you the one that put the limits on Pennywise? And if so, how did that work around, right? I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the turtle is a very, reclusive kind of deity, and in a sense, he's kind of often described as lazy, really, kind of lazy. The turtle is part of a much bigger cosmic grand design that is part of the macroverse and all these other universes, which is kind of at the heart of the Dark Tower trilogy, the Dark Tower series, where he, portrays a very important function being one of the pillars. So he has this kind of duty to all of creation. If those pillars fall, all of creation falls. Every universe, everything, everywhere just falls into oblivion. So I think for him, knowing that Pennywise is stuck within Derry, Maine, and he can't do too much damage outside of that town, I think it's one of those things where he figures I just have bigger fish to fry, unfortunately. But he does reach out every once in a while, like very famously in the book, he pulls Bill's consciousness into the macroverse, and he gives him some pointers on how to combat and defeat Pennywise. But other than that, he's really hands off, and that's usually the reason why he's kind of described as a little bit lazy to the goings on Earth, because Earth is just so minuscule compared to the grand design of the cosmos. So that's pretty much why. Is it fair? Is it right? Absolutely not, especially considering he was the one who created our universe in a fit of indigestion, no less. Like this dude literally threw up and boom, our universe was born. I don't know how, why, but that's the lore. That is unfortunately the lore. But yes, he doesn't look after his creation very attentively. It doesn't seem like he's super invested on what happens in Earth because he's got a much bigger, plan to look at. He's got a much bigger job to fulfill, basically.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen King was doing a lot of things at the time, substances, shall we say. So that sounds like a trip. Like there's a giant turtle and it threw up our universe. But regardless of that, I do want to know, the interaction between Pennywise and other adults. Somebody in the chat, Comfy Shorts, is asking about how the military found Pennywise. And that's kind of what I want
Yeah.
to see. I want to see
Mhm.
him picking on some people that are strong and powerful, and they don't scare very easy. The US military is not going to scare as easily as children would.
Mhm.
So I want to see him interact with them and see if they could take him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing him interact with the military. We do see a few shots in the trailers that almost looks like a SWAT team going into the well house and discovering the well, and lo and behold, they get met with a zombified version of Uncle Sam, which of course back then the Uncle Sam posters were a huge fear among young soldiers because you saw that poster represented war. It represented something that they were afraid of. So it makes perfect sense that he would take on the form of a zombified Uncle Sam for soldiers in 62. Because you got a lot of stuff going on in 62, like the Cold War is going on, the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's a ton of stuff going on that would have soldiers very much on edge and on ease. So I think this is a perfect form for him to take for the soldiers. I don't think the soldiers are going to stand any chance of, unfortunately, this is Pennywise we're talking about. He's nearly indestructible, nearly. But it's interesting nonetheless to see how soldiers are combating him. How did they find him is another question. And if I had to guess, I would most likely think that Dick Halloran was involved, because at this point in time in 1962, Dick Halloran is also part of the military, and he of course has the supernatural ability known as the Shine, which is made famous in Stephen King's The Shining. Which he's also present in. So seeing him cross over from the Shining universe to Derry is great, even though Stephen King's books are kind of all one universe. It's nice to see him showing up in Derry, but he's an active service member at this time. So if I had to guess, if the U.S. military is coming after Pennywise, Dick Halloran has to be involved. It has to be because Dick Halloran sensed him, realized there was some kind of evil in town through his abilities, because he does have supernatural abilities that would probably make him best suited to finding out that there's something really wrong inside Derry. So that's probably my guess. If the U.S. military is going after Pennywise, it's probably most likely because Dick Halloran figured out Pennywise was in Derry. And I think it's going to be really interesting seeing those characters interact, Dick Halloran and Pennywise. That's going to be really fun, because not only has Pennywise never seen anyone like Dick Halloran before who has these supernatural abilities, but Dick Halloran has never seen anything like Pennywise either. He's used to seeing ghosts, apparitions, spirits, stuff like that. Seeing the dead is one thing that Dick Halloran can do. He can see the dead, he can communicate with the dead. But seeing something like Pennywise is going to be totally different from anything he's ever seen either. So both of these characters are going to be coming in contact with something that they've never had to deal with before. And I think that's going to make for some very interesting scenes between Pennywise and Dick Halloran, for sure. I can't wait to see these two characters interact.
Yeah, what I do like about the time period, right? So we're talking about 1960s.
Yep.
In the movies, and you don't have to have watched the movies in order to enjoy the show because it's going to be a prequel.
Yep.
But in the movies, the people that stand a chance against Pennywise are people that have already encountered fear and horrible
Yep.
things in their life.
Yep.
So if you don't scare easily because your life is a nightmare itself,
Exactly.
you're going to be able to kind of handle Pennywise. Like he's the
Like
least of your
Leroy.
problems.
Like Leroy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so 1960s, we're talking about an African American soldier in the 1960s.
Hmm.
His world without Pennywise is already difficult to navigate. There's a lot of horror in that world for
Yeah.
somebody like him, somebody in his situation. And we're going to see some of that with the family. So because your world is already so stressful, you have so much to navigate, so many things that are against you and that have the potential to harm you. Pennywise is not going to be your biggest problem.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to be as afraid as some of the other people would be.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, at the time, 1960s, the world was pretty messed up.
Yeah, yeah, it was a ton of shit. It was not a good time. Not a good time at all. You had all of these things going on all at once, really creating a pressure cooker within the small town of Derry, Maine. And Pennywise is very much going to use all of that fear, all of that paranoia, all of that unrest that is going on inside Derry at the time. You can bet Pennywise is going to prey on it. He's going to use it as fuel to just crank things up and make things that much worse within Derry, Maine. And that's what's going to be interesting to see. How are they going to be able to combat him at such a tumultuous time that you have all of this stuff going on? And Pennywise very much knows how to use these kinds of fears to his advantage. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. And it makes it exciting. But As Insane had a question, what is Pennywise? Does Pennywise have a true form? He does. Pennywise's true form are the deadlights. It's a swirl of like yellowish orange light. We see him use it at some points in the film, and especially in it chapter 1 and in it chapter 2, when we see him opening up his mouth and we see that light coming out from within him. That is the deadlights. That is called the deadlights. That is his true form, his truest natural form. But he also has something on Earth that comes closest to his other truest form in this giant spider-like character that we see in some of the other adaptations of it. But his one true form, the one that humans can't really glimpse, otherwise they will either die or go insane, are these lights, the dead lights. But other than that, his closest to truest forms, his closest to truest form that humans can perceive is that giant malignant spider-like form that we also see him in the movies and in the miniseries. Those are his two main forms. He, Pennywise, of course, is his favorite form. He likes the dancing clown the most because, again, the dancing clown is, the one that works the best for him in terms of luring in unsuspecting children to scare them. The clown is the most effective at that. So Pennywise the dancing clown is his favorite form, but it's not his natural form. It's not his natural state of being. His natural state of being would be either these deadlights, which originate in the macroverse, his true form, and his truest form on Earth that humans can perceive is the spider form. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see both of them on the series. We know we're going to see the deadlights on the series. That much is 100% sure. We have seen in multiple of the trailers him using the deadlights on multiple different people. So we're definitely going to see the deadlights on the show. But I don't know. Hopefully, maybe we'll see his spider-like persona on the show as well. But those are his two most natural forms. But yeah, we're going to see such a wide array of forms that Pennywise takes on the show, because they're not going to use the clown too much. And I'm so glad of this. I'm very excited that they're not just going to be plastering the clown all over the place. I did see some people a little bit disappointed that they're not going to see the clown super early, that they're going to save the clown for later on in the season. But I think that's a good thing. Again, like we were saying earlier, if you show the clown form too much on screen, people are going to get used to it. They're going to become desensitized to it. It's not going to have the same shock value that it does now. If you use it sparingly, it maintains that shock value. And again, like we said earlier, I love the metaphor that Andy Muschietti uses in terms of comparing the clown form to the shark on Jaws. You don't want to show him in every single scene, because then you're not going to be scared of the shark anymore. It's going to lose its effect. And that's how he's approaching the Pennywise form here on the show. And he did the same thing on the movies as well. If you go back and watch It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, the actual Pennywise form is only on screen for a very small duration of time. Most of the time, we see him in all of these other forms and creating all of these other illusions. And that's what I want to see. I want to see these other forms of Pennywise. I'm so glad that they're not going to be leaning on the clown too much. Because again, people would become desensitized to it. You would start to get used to seeing the clown if he shows up in every single episode. But since they're not doing that, it just kicks open the door in terms of all of these other forms that they can portray him as. And just from a creative standpoint, like if I was a writer on this show, this would be a dream job, being able to have this kind of blank canvas with this iconic character like it, and all of the interesting kind of forms that you can kind of just come up with and throw in there. That sounds like a freaking dream. I would love to be a writer on this show. But for me, I'm glad. I'm glad that they're not going to be showing the clown too much, because I do think people would get used to it and it would lose its effect after a while. But yeah, to answer your question, those are his two main forms, the deadlights and the giant spider. But yeah, let me know. Do you guys have some favorite forms that you have seen Pennywise in, whether it's in It Chapter 1 or Chapter 2, or even if it's from the earlier miniseries with Tim Curry in the 90s? What are some of your favorite forms that you guys have seen Pennywise take? The old scary lady with the black teeth is scary. That is one of the more creepy ones. The one like with the wicked long head that bites on Stan, I believe, like bites Stan's head. That one is super creepy in the first film. That is one of the scarier forms that he takes on. Definitely. But yeah, and yeah, in terms of the military finding him, it must be Dick Halloran related. Gotta have something to do with Dick Halloran for sure. Yeah, gang forgot about writing entire stories like Cujo because of cocaine. I mean, what are you gonna do? These were the 70s and the 80s. It was a thing. So yes, you see some of this weird stuff in some of Stephen King's novels. It's like, well, he grew up in the 70s. He probably did a lot of coke. Very true. Very much true. Yeah, looking forward to seeing all of these other ones. Definitely looking forward to seeing all these other ones. What is up, Targaryen loyalists? Good to see you, my friend. Late to the party. Hello, everyone. So excited for the first episode. Yes, I cannot wait. And speaking of, the first episode is just 13 minutes away now, ladies and gentlemen. We are just 13 minutes away from episode 1 of It. Welcome to Derry. And then, of course, as soon as the show is done, as soon as everybody's done watching the show, be sure to come right back here on the channel because we are going to be doing a live after show discussion where we dive into all things It. Welcome to Derry, and we will be breaking down the entire first episode from start to finish. So after you guys are done watching episode 1, be sure to come back here and hang out with us for the after show. 13 minutes away, PM. You ready?
I'm so ready. I'm so ready. I want to see how exactly are they going to begin this epic series, right? Are we going to get some clown? I know we're not going to see a lot of the clown, but is there going to be an opening with the clown? I'm guessing there has to be a little, something about him for the first episode.
Um, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. One thing I do know is that we're not going to get the opening credits in episode 1. Andy Muschietti talked about they created like a really beautiful and really good looking opening credit scene, similar to how like Game of Thrones had a beautiful opening credit
Mhm.
sequence. Apparently, they created a really good one for this show, but it's not in the first episode. Episode 1 seems to be just a cold open, but episode 2 is going to show this intricate kind of opening that they created for the show. I cannot wait to see that. But for me, I think this is how the show is going to open up. I think episode 1 is going to start with this scene right here, with this little boy out there hitchhiking on the road and trying to get away from Derry, Maine, because clearly he seemingly had some kind of interaction with Pennywise. We see him get picked up by what appears to be a normal family at first, and when they ask him where he wants to go, he says anywhere but Derry. Clearly he wants to get out of town. He's had some kind of weird interaction, some kind of scary interaction with Pennywise. We see that he's got a black eye, so he's clearly been into it. And he gets into this car where he thinks this family is going to save him. But if you've seen some of the earlier trailers, the other trailers, you know that it looks like he walked right into Pennywise's trap getting into this car. But I get the feeling the show is going to open up with this sequence right here. That is my guess, that we're going to see this sequence. And it's a really good sequence to open up the show on, where you get to see not only what Pennywise is capable from afar, you get to see what he's capable of without actually having to see him. And you see his motives, his his modus operandi, what he likes to do, how he likes to go after children. So for me, I think this is the perfect sequence for them to open up the series on. And I think this is what the show is going to open up on. If I had to guess, we're going to get this for an opening scene.
I mean, that's incredibly heartbreaking. Once again, he preys on the defenseless, those who need the most in society. He's trying to escape. The children are already going through something. He has a black eye. And then on top of it, you have to deal with Pennywise. It's just so incredibly unfair.
Yeah,
Um, but it seems like it's just going to be heartbreaking
it is.
having to see them being consumed one after another.
Yeah. I think it's going to be very devastating, very, very devastating. But yeah, if I had to guess, this is going to be the opening scene. They've showed all of this. They've showed this scene in like every single trailer that they've put out, and it has that feeling of an opening scene. When I saw this in the trailer, I thought, oh, this would be a perfect opening scene to open up the show on this shot with him on the road trying to hitchhike, getting into a car, thinking that he's home clear, thinking that he's safe, only to realize that he fell right into Pennywise's trap. It's just a perfect opening scene. So I think they're going to open with this. That would be my guess. But who knows? Who knows? Let's see what else we got. Will it be the same voice actor? Well, it's not even a voice actor. If you're talking about the actor who plays Pennywise, that's a real actor. That's really Bill Skarsgård. And yeah, Bill Skarsgård is returning to reprise his role as Pennywise. He's every time you see Pennywise the clown on screen, that is 100% Bill Skarsgård. He has returned for the show. Which is great news. But no, it's not just a voice actor. That's actually him inside the, inside the costume, inside the makeup. They showed a little bit of it in the recent behind the scenes featurette that they dropped. And he has to sit down for anywhere from like around 3 to 6 hours to put on all of this makeup, all of these aesthetics, because it's all practical. They don't use a whole lot of digital effects. Andy Machete's not a big fan of CGI, which I love. I'm so glad that he likes using practical effects because they always look way better. So he has to sit there for around 3 to 6 hours every time they apply this makeup in this full suit. So every time we see Pennywise, that is Bill Skarsgård in makeup, in costume, doing the character himself. If that's what you were referring to, Golden Child. If you're talking about another voiceover, let me know. But if you're talking about the voice of Pennywise and Pennywise himself, yeah, that's always going to be Bill Skarsgård. He's the definitive Pennywise actor. I know Tim Curry very much kind of defined this role for generations by playing him in the 90s. But for me personally, I think Bill Skarsgård plays a way better Pennywise than Tim Curry. But that's just my personal opinion. Just my personal opinion. Yeah, Robert Bob Gray is that. Yeah, but we're going to see some Bob Gray. Bob Gray is his human persona. His human name is Bob Gray, and it looks like we're going to see a good deal of him. Again, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but in that recent behind the scenes featurette, they showed us a glimpse of the circus set. They built an entire set around the traveling circus where Pennywise first adopts the Pennywise persona and the Bob Gray persona. And it looks like we're going to see a lot of that on the show. A lot of flashbacks to some of Pennywise's history and some of his origins. We know we're going to see him landing on Earth. We saw that much in the trailer. We saw the comet in the trailer. So they are going to be going as far back to him first landing on Earth millions of years ago. And then, of course, we're going to see when he first emerges in 1715, and then again in the 1740s. Looks like we're going to see all of that on the show. A lot of flashbacks to his history, and I love that. Absolutely. And yeah, the 90s adaptation, you saw the clown a lot, right? You saw the clown way too much in the 90s version. Just for me personally, I know the 90s version was good, don't get me wrong, but they didn't lean into Pennywise's other forms nearly as much. We saw the clown way too much in the 90s adaptation. Just for me personally, Tim Curry did great, don't get me wrong. He was a great Pennywise, but you show the clown too much, you show the clown that much, it starts to kind of become normal and you kind of get desensitized to it. It loses its effect, basically. And it did for me. I remember it losing its effect for me watching that miniseries in the 90s because they're always showing the clown and they didn't show enough of his other forms. But that's just my opinion. I mean, everybody's different, of course, but I'm really glad that they're not going to be showing the clown too much at the beginning of this series and how they're going to be saving him for vital moments later on in the season. That way we don't just see him in every single episode and every single scene, because again, we will get used to it after a while. So using him sparingly, I think, is the best idea. But that's just me. But here we go, PM, 5 minutes away. We are 5 minutes away from episode 1, guys.
So exciting. I see everybody's excited in the chat and they're comparing it to From. I'm also looking forward to seeing, I'm a big fan of it. But of course, From is my number one show. I love From. I'm always going to be, a From fan first. And it's horror, but I think it's a different type of horror, right? Like you do
Yeah,
have some
definitely.
sci-fi within both of them. But it's a different category from me. So even though it might be amazing, I don't know if I could say, it might be better than From. I don't know, but I'm biased. I have a huge bias for From.
Yeah, me too. Me too. From will always be one of my favorite shows to cover here on the channel. From and Shogun as well. Like I loved Shogun season 1, and I'm also really looking forward to A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It looks like it's going to be freaking great. Everything we're seeing from A Night of the Seven Kingdoms looks phenomenal. I cannot wait to dive back into Westeros in January. Can't freaking wait for that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a really fun show. Again, the production quality looks just phenomenal. This is going to be one of those shows. Welcome to Derry is definitely going to be one of those shows where every single episode is going to feel a little bit more like a mini feature film rather than an episode of television, because it's so grand, because it's so well produced. I definitely get the feeling that a lot of these episodes are going to feel more like short films rather than just an episode of television. And I love that. I love when shows are able to pull that off, very much like Shogun did. Shogun felt like you were watching a mini movie every week. It didn't feel like an episode of television. It felt bigger. It felt grander. And I think we're going to get something similar here from It Welcome to Derry, especially with Bill Skarsgård himself returning as Pennywise. Every time we see Bill on screen, you're going to have that cinematic feel. It's just going to have that very cinematic feeling. So yeah, I think this is going to be great. I think this is going to be absolutely great. And yeah, I mean, it makes Pennywise even creepier. Bill kills the role so good. He really is. He's so good. Again, Tim Curry was great, but Bill is Pennywise. He is the definitive Pennywise for me, anyway. I know that could probably be split in terms of who you like better, Bill or Tim Curry, but for me, whenever I think of Pennywise, I'll always think of this version of Pennywise now, not the 90s version. This has surpassed the 90s version for me. But yeah, here we go, guys. Only 2 minutes. We are just 2 minutes away now. 2 minutes from It Welcome to Derry. And yes, we are having an after show. We are. As soon as we're going to end this stream in about a minute, we're going to go watch It Welcome to Derry. I wish I could play it here on screen. If I could, I would, but it's illegal. My channel would get in a lot of trouble if I tried playing the episode right here on screen. I wish I could, but unfortunately I can't. But we're going to end the stream in a minute. We're going to go watch It Welcome to Derry episode 1. And then as soon as episode 1 is done, we're going to be right back here and we're going to fire up a live after show discussion. And hopefully you guys choose to come back and hang out with us. And I can't wait to discuss episode 1 with everybody. Cannot wait to see what you guys think. Cannot wait to see what some of your favorite scenes were and what some of your least favorite scenes were. If you hated it, we want to know. We want to hear from each and every one of you after we're done watching episode 1. So be sure to come back right here and we will hang out for the live after show. And yes, I will drop a link to the live after show in the chat right now. Let me pull that up. It's starting at 10:15 Eastern Standard Time. 10:15 Eastern. Here is the after show link. Boom. Right there, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, come and hang out with us for the after show. Let us share your thoughts and theories. Let us know what you guys thought of episode 1 after you're done watching it. We will be right here on the channel going live as soon as the episode ends. And until then, have a safe night, everybody. Hope you guys enjoy the show. And we will see all of you in just a few minutes. Have a good one.